This anime begins with a narrative where in ancient times, there lived an ancient race of nobility who were immortal supernatural beings. They are worshipped as rulers, and some call them gods. Among the nobles, there is a noblesse, a man named Cadis Etrama di Raizel. He is the protector of the nobility with superpowers shrouded in mystery. After sleeping 820 years in a coffin, Raizel finally woke up from his long slumber. And after that, he went to an academy called Yeron High School. He then meets his male servant named Frankenstein, who is the principal at the academy, as well as a servant who has long been devoted to him until now. Because Raizel has been asleep for 820 years, he intends to study there so that he can find out about human life in the present. On that day, Raizel introduced himself in class, and the female students were stunned to see his good looks. Next, there are two figures named Jake and Mari, who are perfect artificial humans from the Union organization. They send humans from failed experiments named M21 and M24 to search for the whereabouts of the noblesse's coffin. After finding a man suspected of carrying the coffin, it turned out that the position of the coffin was no longer there. After interrogating the man, M24 was able to read his mind where there was a woman who might be a clue. Then they used the man to take them to where the noblesse's coffin was. It is known that they do not know the fact that Noblesse has awakened from his coffin. Meanwhile, there are two men named Han Shinwoo and Manabu who are Raizel's classmates. After school, they heard the screams of a woman named Yuna. Hearing this, they rushed to the source of the sound. Arriving there, Shinwoo immediately beat the creature. Realizing the opponent they were facing was not human, they immediately left. M21 and M24 who were also there realized that Raizel was no ordinary human. Their goal of capturing Yuna is to provide clues about the noblesse's coffin. The next day, M21 and M24 again saw Raizel and his friends when they came home from school. However, Raizel unexpectedly found out the whereabouts of the two, which at that time were on the roof of a building that was quite far away. Then came Jake and Mari approached M21 and M24 who then said that anyone who knew about the Union organization should be exterminated. Therefore, Yuna and her friends who have seen them must also be arrested. After Yuna and other friends separated from Raizel, they were kidnapped by M21 and M24 to be used as bait to catch him. Arriving at the headquarters, Yuna and her friends were almost preyed upon by a monster that had previously been infected by M24. Luckily, Shinwoo was able to thwart that, and he managed to send an emergency message to Frank. After reading the message, Frank and Raizel immediately rushed to help them. Then, Jake pulled the monster's head off because it failed to prey on Shinwoo and his friends. They all ran until they arrived at an old elevator, but Jake could easily break through it. There was an unbalanced fight between Shinwoo and Jake until Shinwoo's hand had to be injured. Even so, he kept trying to hold Jake's leg so he wouldn't hurt his friends. Meanwhile, M24 who saw it, remembered the same moment where his friend was willing to sacrifice his life for the sake of friendship. Finally, M24 lost his patience and was fed up with Jake's treatment of himself and others, then he immediately attacked Jake. Unfortunately, his punches did not make him fall. In fact, he was defeated by Jake until M24 blew himself up. On the other hand, M21 and Mari are waiting for Raizel's arrival. But Mari, who realized that M21 and M24 wanted to defect from the organization, immediately attacked M21. Shortly after Frank and Raizel arrived, Frank immediately stopped Mari when she was about to kill M21. Raizel then rushed to help Shinwoo and the others, while Frank was assigned to fight Mari. When fighting, Mari's strength is not comparable to Frank's, which managed to make her injured. This situation must make Mari transform with her strongest mode, so that it can overwhelm him a little. But after Frank was given permission by Raizel to unseal his power to defeat Mari, he immediately released his power and succeeded in overthrowing her with just one attack. On the other hand, Jake arrogantly underestimated Raizel. But a moment later, Raizel made him unable to move after his mind was controlled by Raizel. Even after Jake took out his true form and tried to attack him, it was still not enough to defeat him. After a short fight, Raizel finally managed to defeat Jake with his blood control. Then Raizel erased the memories of Shinwoo and the others so that they could forget the incident. Meanwhile, M21 who saw it was immediately surprised by Raizel's strength. After that incident, M21 was allowed to live with Raizel and Frank, and he was even given a job as security at the academy. On the first day of work, he became the center of attention of the female students there. When Shinwoo and Manabu met him, they didn't know him at all. Besides that, Shinwoo also didn't remember why his hand was injured, even though it was the result of the previous incident. Day after day passed, seeing the world that had changed so much, Raizel was given a cell phone, even though he didn't know how to use it. During recess, Raizel ate ramen for the first time, and he really liked it. Soon after, their school was visited by a group of delinquents who were looking for Shinwoo's whereabouts. They want revenge because his woman has been touched by Shinwoo. Hearing the commotion, Shinwoo immediately went and tried to explain the chronology. At that time, he was just trying to help the woman who almost fell because she stumbled while walking. But the delinquent ignored him and chose to continue attacking him. And with Shinwoo's injured hand, he couldn't fight much. Then, after M21 got permission from Raizel to help Shinwoo, he finally intervened in the fight. In an instant, the delinquent was easily defeated and immediately fled from there. In the evening, the Union organization arrived in Japan to carry out its mission of searching for noblesse. They all consist of a group of men named Takeo, Tall, Hammer, Shark, and their captain named Krantz. The next day, a man named Riggies and a woman named Sarah, who belonged to the noble class, came to Yeron High School disguised as students. Frank actually knew that the two of them were no ordinary students because they both had the same aura as Raizel, but they both thought Frank was just a human. With Raizel's permission, they were placed in the same class as Raizel. Arriving at the classroom, Riggies and Sarah's eyes fell on Raizel's aura. They also realized that he was not an ordinary human. In the evening, Shinwoo and the others went to Frank's house, where Raizel and M21 also lived together. Having no lodging yet, Riggies and Sarah were also allowed to temporarily stay there. When Frank and M21 were tidying the house, Sarah accidentally saw the tattoo on M21's hand, which was the symbol of the Union organization given based on their experimental number. The next day after school, Riggies, who did not know that the noblesse had woken up, then went to M21 to ask for the coffin. He was not satisfied with M21's answer, so he was angry and immediately attacked him. Their fight was stopped when Sarah informed them that she was in trouble, then they immediately went to where she was. On the other hand, Shinwoo was fighting against the boss of the previous delinquent, because he did not accept that his men were defeated by Shinwoo. Not long after M21 arrived, he immediately attacked all the delinquents to make them run away. Later at the base, Tao received information that Jake and Mari were assigned to look for a coffin in Japan, and they didn't know that Jake and Mari had actually died. Then Krantz asked them to immediately look for the two. Tao also tried to hack into the security system at the school, but his attempt was thwarted by Manabu, who is also proficient in that field. There was a chance to send viruses between the two of them, until the arrival of Shinwoo accidentally pulled the computer cable, which caused Manabu's computer to turn off and stop his action. Moments later, Ta finally managed to break into CCTV and found the whereabouts of M21. As a result, Shark and Hammer were ordered to immediately arrest him at any cost. After finding M21, Shark and Hammer were then confronted by him because he didn't want to go with them. At the same time, Riggies and Sarah appeared there. To maintain the confidentiality of the organization, Shark and Hammer immediately attacked the two for having seen them. However, their attack was successfully blocked by M21 because he did not want Riggies and Sarah's identities to be known. Not long after, Krantz arrived at that place, and as a result, M21 was forced to go with them. M21's purpose in joining them was to dig up information about his friends, and they didn't even know that he had betrayed the Union organization. Arriving at their headquarters, M21 continues to be forced to tell everything he knows about the noblesse's coffin, but he didn't open his mouth at all even though he was beaten up. The next day, when Shinwoo and Sarah were walking, they accidentally saw a man who turned out to be Takeo, who was being held up by some thugs. Then Shinwoo immediately helped him. After that incident, they looked familiar even though they had only just known each other. On the other hand, Tao and Manabu, who previously hacked each other, then decided to meet. From the meeting, they feel they have many things in common, including their talents are not appreciated and underestimated by the people around them. In the evening, Riggies meets Shark, where Riggies makes Shark helpless because his mind is controlled by him. Feeling cornered, Shark swallowed a pill from Hammer. After swallowing the pill, his speed and attack power also increased drastically. However, the power was still not enough when Riggies also released his power. But at the same time, Hammer managed to catch Shinwoo and Manabu, so Riggies was asked to stop his attack and come with them to the headquarters. On the other hand, Sarah reported to Frank that Riggies seemed to be in danger due to Riggies and Sarah's consciousness being connected, so they can know each other's condition. After that, Sarah rushed off to look for his whereabouts, and soon Frank and Raizel followed. Meanwhile, Riggies woke up and wanted to destroy the handcuffs on his hands. However, the attempt was unsuccessful, and the action would certainly endanger Shinwoo and Manabu, who were held hostage by Shark. Then, M21 was asked what relationship he had with Riggies, but he answered as if he didn't know him. Shinwoo and Manabu, who also woke up, wondered why they were kidnapped. M21, which was constantly under pressure, still did not leak any information about noblesse, and he said that it had absolutely nothing to do with the two. Shortly after, Krantz ordered Shark to kill Shinwoo and Manabu to keep their organization a secret. Shinwoo, who was about to fight back, instantly became weak and helpless. Seeing this, M21 attacked Shark, even though he had to betray his promise to his friends who were the experiment's subjects. Meanwhile, Sarah, who had been searching for so long, finally found the place where Riggies was. However, she was immediately blocked by Hammer. so she took out her strength and managed to defeat him. Not long after, Frank and Raizel arrived at the place. Immediately they were attacked by Takeo, but the attack was easily dodged. Then Takeo swallowed a pill so his attack could overwhelm Frank. Until there is a moment where Takeo mentions Raizel's name, and that's where Frank becomes emotional and releases his power seal without Raizel's permission first. As a result, Takeo can be easily defeated. At the same time, Sarah watches the battle and realizes that Frank is no ordinary human and may have a higher status than nobles. At headquarters, M21 looks increasingly helpless with several wounds on his body. Over time, Regis could not stand the sight of this condition, and with just a short amount of force, he was able to shatter the handcuffs on his hands. At that moment, Regis immediately attacked Shark in a row. Finally, Krantz intervened and swallowed a pill first. But instead of helping, Krantz actually killed Shark. Actually, the pill swallowed by Krantz is a special drug to suck power, so that all the remaining power of Shark was sucked out by him. After that, Regis was made immobile by Krantz, so that none of his attacks could hit him. Not long after, Raizel came and made Krantz helpless just by controlling his mind. Krantz, who felt cornered, then ordered Tao to swallow a pill to increase his strength. However, Tao did not want to and chose to betray. Manabu, who saw that, also pleaded with Raizel to save Tao. As a result, Raizel destroyed Krantz instantly. After that incident, Tao and Takeo, who were previously injured quite badly, have now recovered. They live in a house with Frank and the others. One time, Tao told Takeo that they were just being used by Krantz, and that Takeo didn't actually have a younger sister. The Union organization had manipulated his memories to be used. When Tao and Takeo were about to leave the house, Frank allowed them to stay there and was given a job as security, along with M21. They were also quite popular with the students when they first started working. Long story short, after discussing, Raizel and the others decided to erase and then rewrite Shinwoo and Manabu's memories. This is the second time their memories will be rewritten. This is because as long as Shinwoo and Manabu have memories of the existence and identity of the noblesse and the nobles, danger will always await them. The same goes for the Union organization, where anyone who witnesses or knows anything about them must be exterminated. The next day, a male clan leader named Geijutel, who is also Riki's grandfather, came to school. When he first saw M21 and the others, he immediately realized that the three of them were not ordinary people. After that, Geijutel warned Rigis and Sarah not to mix with humans in order to stay focused on their task of finding the noblesse. After that, he is taken to Frank's house to meet Raizel. Raizel explains to Geijutel that the world of nobility is now ruled by a woman named Raskrea, the daughter of the previous dead lord. Long story short, night came. It seems that Frank and Geijutel's relationship is not going well. That's because Geijutel still has a little grudge against Frank. After all, he had massacred many of his people in the past. In a little flashback, Frank was once dubbed a hunter who killed nobles with his great power. Frank hated nobles because they always looked down on humans and thought humans were weak. On the other hand, it was seen when Raizel met the Lord before. There he was offered by the Lord to live in Lukedonia with various facilities, but somehow he refused the offer. After that, Geijutel and Ragar are ordered to capture Frank. At the same time, Frank managed to eradicate the noble forces, and at that moment, he was visited by Geijutel and Ragar. Instantly they were fighting. Both of them show their respective strengths. But when Frank unleashed the power of his dark spear, he couldn't control himself, and even that power devoured his soul. After that, Frank flees to a house, which turns out to be Raizel's. Not long after that, Geijutel and Ragar also arrived there. When they want to take Frank, Raizel prevents them because Frank will be a servant in his house. 5 years later, Frank is training with Ragar to train so he doesn't lose control. On the other hand, there is a male noble named Urokai who is jealous of Frank because he is closer to Raizel, where even those of the noble class are not allowed. Then Urokai offers to train with Frank, with the intention of teaching him a lesson. At first, Frank looks overwhelmed. However, when Urokai mentions his closeness to Raizel, he becomes angry and uncontrollable. Even Geijutel and Ragar are unable to stop him. A few moments later, the Lord and Raizel arrived at their training ground. Raizel was able to stop Frank. In addition, he decided to forge a blood oath. The oath was made when a noble wanted to control human blood in a way that both of them had to agree to the oath through an exchange of souls. From then on, Frank became Raizel's servant. The story continues to the present. Geijutel sees Raizel's daily life and the lives of the people in the house full of happiness, so he allows Rigis to stay there. And after that, Geijutel returned home to Lukedonia. Arriving there, Geijutel was scolded by the Lord because he couldn't bring Raizel, Rigis, and also Sarah. And because of that, he was finally imprisoned. Then a man named Ryle was ordered to bring Sarah before the Lord to read her mind in order to find out who the real traitor was. The next day, Ryle appeared before Rigis and Sarah. Realizing Ryle's goal, she was reluctant to go with him. Raizel was disappointed when his invitation to marry Sarah was rejected for the second time, and it made him angry. Luckily, Frank came who tried to protect Sarah after he was previously given permission to remove the power seal, so the fight was inevitable. After feeling cornered, Raizel then displayed a direct order from the Lord. It made Sarah unable to refuse, and finally, she went with him. Sarah's sudden departure made Ricky's worried about her situation. For that, Frank decided to go help her after he previously gave medicine to M21 and the others to strengthen their strength, and just in case Frank wasn't around. Arriving at Lukedonia, Sarah didn't want to say that she had met Raizel. Even though she was in pain, she still didn't want to tell the truth. Therefore, she was put in prison. It is known that Lord Raskrea is jealous of Raizel, who always gets the attention of her father, because she is very ambitious to replace her father's position later as Lord. On the other hand, Raizel, Frank, and also Riggy's arrived in Lukedonia by plane, and after that, they went to Raizel's house to hide. There was a sole weapon sword left by the previous lord. Meanwhile, when Riggy's was overwhelmed by Lukedonia's troops, he was suddenly helped by M21, Ta, and Takeo, who turned out to be hiding on the plane. After they all gathered, Frank explained that Noblesse was a figure who had power over the nobles, and Raizel added that the previous lord had repeatedly asked him to become the next lord, but he always refused. After that, there was a battle between M21, Ta, and also Takeo against Raizel. Even though the strength of the three of them was combined, they still couldn't match Raizel's strength. A few moments later, a man named Rajak came who was Raizel's brother. At the same time, Frank also came there, and the battle began. On the other hand, Gajutel and Sarah were brought before the Lord. Before Gajutel received the death sentence, he explained a fact in front of the leaders of each clan, where the main reason Lord Raskrea hated Raizel was because the previous lord asked Raizel to be the next lord. When Lord Raskrea wanted to kill Gajutel, Raizel suddenly appeared there until he was repeatedly attacked by all clan leaders at the same time. However, all of them were no match for Raizel, so he could easily turn things around. Even Lord Raskrea had to intervene to face him, but it was still not enough, and she could only slightly scratch his cheek. After that, Raizel took out the sword left by the previous lord. When the two swords are put together, a shadow appears from the previous lord, who then tells him the reason for ending his life is because he wants to evolve and of his own will, which means Raizel is just being slandered. At that time, Gajutel was ordered to stay alive and keep an eye on everything. It means that from the beginning, Gajutel actually knew that Raizel was not a traitor, but Lord Raskrea had been blinded by her hatred of Raizel from the start. After Gajutel told all the truth, all clan leaders asked Lord Raskrea to forgive Gajutel. As a result, the handcuffs that bound him and Sarah's hands were released. Finally, Raizel and the others returned to Japan. Even Riggy's and Sarah were allowed to stay in Japan until they were adults. The anime ends. The moral message that can be taken is that the higher the ability, level, and power of a person, it must be balanced with better morals and behavior, and not forgetting the obligations to those who do not have these privileges.